All right, let's get right into it. What if I told you that the biggest reason AI projects fail at work has absolutely nothing to do with the tech itself? Nope, today we're not talking about code or fancy demos. We're diving into the human brain because we're going to unpack the psychological blueprint for making AI actually work in a company. So let's start with a story that probably sounds a little too familiar. A company spends a ton of money on some shiny new digital tool. They promise it's going to revolutionize productivity, and then a year later, yeah, it's just sitting there collecting digital dust. So why does this happen over and over again? Why do so many of these big transformations fail so predictably? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple, but it's almost overlooked. The problem isn't the technology, it's our psychology. The real barrier, it's that 3-pound universe sitting right between our ears. And that brings us to our first big idea, the real barrier. It is all in our heads. A 2022 Deloitte study actually confirmed this. It found that our resistance to new tech is fundamentally psychological. Our brains are just hardwired to see change as a threat, and a simple software tutorial, well, that's just not going to cut it. Okay, so if the problem is psychological, it stands to reason that the solution has to be too. And this brings us to the core of what we're talking about today, the psychological blueprint. Now, this isn't just another training program. It's a framework designed specifically for the human brain, and it's focused on rewiring our habits, not just teaching us where to click. So, what is actually in this blueprint? How do you systematically engineer a whole new way of working for people? Well, it turns out it's not magic. It's just science. At the very core of this is something called behavioral design. It's built on a pretty famous model from B.J. Fogg. And the idea is simple. For any new behavior to actually stick, you need 3 things to happen all at once. First, you need motivation. That's the why. Why should I do this? Second, you need ability. It has to be easy to do. And finally, you need a trigger, a little prompt that tells you, do it now. You get those 3 things lined up, and boom, you can build a new habit. Then you've got nudge theory. This isn't about forcing people to do things. It's about making the right choice the easy choice. Like how a cafeteria might put the healthy fruit right at eye level. In an office, this could be small micro-assignments or gentle reminders that nudge employees towards using AI in their daily tasks. It makes it feel natural, not forced. And really, these are just the tip of the iceberg. This whole blueprint is built on a solid foundation of proven learning science. It uses cognitive load theory so you don't overwhelm people. It leans on the neuroscience of how we acquire skills so the learning actually sticks. It uses the 70-20-10 model to make sure most of the learning is hands-on, and it's all grounded in adult learning theory, which means everything is practical and immediately useful. So how do you actually apply all this science? Well, it's definitely not a one-day workshop. It's a structured 3-month journey that's designed to take an entire workforce from being resistant to being proficient. And that journey is broken down into 3 really clear phases. You start by building the right mindset. Then you move on to mastering the new workflow. And finally, you empower employees to become the ones who lead the change themselves. Month 1 is all about rewiring the brain. It starts by tackling that initial fear head on. We use something called loss aversion reframing to shift the focus from, oh no, AI might replace me, to, hey, AI can free me from my most boring tasks. Then we use habit stacking. So, for example, right after you check your email in the morning, that's an existing habit, you spend just 5 minutes using an AI to summarize them. That's the new habit. See? It makes the change feel almost effortless. Then, in month 2, all that theory becomes reality. The focus shifts to building daily habits where people can see the payoff right away. We're talking about embedding AI into everyday stuff, like slashing your email time or getting a first draft of a report automated. And this isn't just a concept. It's something major companies like PwC, Unilever, and Coca-Cola are already doing. And finally, in month 3, you scale up. We go from individual skills to big picture organizational strategy. This phase isn't just for the frontline staff, it's really for the leaders. It's all about equipping them to make smart, strategic decisions, navigate complex ethical rules like the EU AI Act, and truly own the company's AI transformation. Now, all of this sounds great in theory, but it has to lead to real, measurable results, right? And that brings us to our next section, the actual proof in the productivity numbers. Because this is the most important question, isn't it? Does focusing on the human side of things actually move the needle for the business? Well, let me tell you, the data is pretty clear on this one. Let's start with a massive number. A 2023 study by Boston Consulting Group and Harvard found that for complex, creative, and analytical tasks, using AI increased the quality of the final work by a staggering 40%. That's not a small tweak. That is a complete game changer for performance. And it's not just about quality, it's about speed. This chart really shows the huge efficiency gains. On the left, you see data from MIT showing AI can cut the time it takes to do a task by nearly 40%. And on the right, McKinsey data shows a potential productivity boost of up to 45%. I mean, these are the kinds of numbers that can fundamentally change how a business operates. And on a personal level, the impact is just as huge. According to Microsoft's latest Work Trend Index, over 70% of people who regularly use AI report saving 1 to 2 hours every single day. Just imagine what your team could get done with an extra 5 to 10 hours a week. But ultimately, this approach delivers more than just skilled people. It builds lasting assets for the whole organization. As you can see here, the company walks away with tangible things: a clear AI framework for everyone, several automated workflows that are already saving time, a robust policy for secure and ethical use, and a concrete strategy for what comes next. You know, this human-centered approach doesn't just apply to AI. It really points to a fundamental shift in how we should be thinking about all corporate training. And that brings us to our final thought: the future of corporate learning. So, if there's just one thing you take away from all of this, let it be this. The challenge of AI isn't about teaching people which buttons to click. The real work, the much more important work, is building new human habits that allow us to partner with this technology effectively. It's about rewiring ourselves for a whole new era. And that leaves us with one final question for you to take back to your own workplace. Take a look at your company's approach to new technology and just ask, are we training people for tools, or are we truly building their capacity for change? Because the answer to that question, well, that's what's going to define your future.